All right, students, Assalamu alaikum. So as I promised that I will be sharing a video with you. So here is my first lecture. We're going to start from a little bit revision of 14th century. So we ended our last lecture studying about Canterbury Tales, where Chaucer was depicting and projecting the picture of the old England. And he actually drew that picture out of the 29 pilgrims who were going on a holy journey or a pilgrimage. And during that journey, he portrayed that all of them were actually narrating their own stories. But we did not read the stories. Rather, what did we do? We read the prologue line by line, where we came across different characters, and each of the character had different character traits. And through those character traits and personality types, we came across what kind of England was it at that time in 14th century. Apart from that, I had already told you that at that time feudalism prevailed in England, and church or clergy had a strong hold, which can be clearly seen in Chaucer's Canterbury Tales as well, where different people, different clergymen, and different characters like parson and knight and Madame Eglantine, they could all be seen. Their colors could be seen. That what kind of society was it? Well, after that, we read about the monkey. The monkey was written by a Chinese writer who, the Monkey King or the Monkey, it was a novel where we could see that the writer has basically spoken about different religions. He has talked about Buddhism, Christianity, and that the major themes of the monkey focused on the comparison of different beliefs. And one of the major character, that is the Monkey King himself, is shown encountering different adventures. Then we read few excerpts from Don Quixote, and this is another novel by um, Cervantes, who is a known writer from Spain. And this writer again has presented a character for the first time who imagines himself as a knight, and he imagines that he is on different adventures worldwide. He's roaming or traveling, and during those adventures he wants to win the heart of that lady, and in his trials he is being foolish as well, where he fights with imaginary windmills, thinking of them as some monsters or giants. But here, mainly, what Cervantes has done, he has shown that Don Quixote, who is a knight, does not have that level of intellect and understanding, and he is not intelligent enough. Rather, his servant, um, Panzo, I guess, he is shown to be more intelligent, and he is actually trying to bring his master out of this foolish imagination that these giants are not the windmills. So this was actually the recapitulation of whatever we did in our last classes. Now I'm going to focus on 15th and 16th century, which is known as early modern period. Now, this marks the beginning of the modern period worldwide. There are multiple reasons for labeling these centuries as early modern. Um, and we're going to discuss those reasons in the upcoming slides, where you're going to see that how different literary movements and religious movements conspire together to bring a change in the face of the world. Let's move to our next slide. Well, this shows us the major events which happened in 15th and 16th century, and which became the causes of the change in the belief system and the living standards of the people and their ideas and their thinking style and their perception. So everything was changed. I'm going to read these points first, and then I'm going to elaborate them one by one. So it says that China had built massive wooden ships. The emperor at that time had a broad vision to sail, explore, and expand the dynasty. New natural creatures were being discovered around the world. For example, a giraffe was transported from Africa to China, was considered as a unique creature. Major means of transport outside the borders were ships. China ruled over marine revolutions, and geologists later discovered porcelains with beast images in seabed. The last line of the slide says that the new sea routes were discovered by known travelers such as Columbus and Vasco da Gama. Now, what is this slide telling us? It's actually giving us a picture of the major events which were happening at that time in the world. What do we mean to say when we say that there were massive wooden ships built by China? Prior to this age, we see that there was no such smooth communication between the two states or the borders. If we look at the map of the world at that time, we see that Europe and Asia were known to be Eurasia only because they had some kind of communication between them. But if we imagine what kind of world it was at that time, we see that there was hardly any smooth link or connection between the states. And whatever was happening inside one state did not have much to do with the other states. So this building of massive wooden ships indicates the start of trade. It can be the import or export of different products. It can be, you may look at it as a start of, territorial hold that different emperors at that time could have on the surrounding states. So when we say that these massive wooden ships were built, or China was far ahead in building these ships and sailing, it means that anybody, any country, not excuse just excuse me for this, buddy, any country which was empowered, which had this enough strength, which had these ships to sail, was must have been a superpower. Not actually a superpower in the true sense, but definitely a state. For example, if you assume that you're living in a world where there are no airplanes, where there are no as such other ways of communication to the outer world except the ships. So how are you going to evaluate the power of any country? Definitely you will look at it with a different perspective, and you would say that any country which possessed this sailing power was the most powerful country at that time. So this tells that China was one of the big power at that time. And then we see that this is the first time ever this happened in any country, that different creatures were discovered. We observed that maybe the birds, maybe the kind of creatures that we come across in northern areas of Pakistan do not exist somewhere in other parts of the world due to difference of climate and environment and many other factors. Similarly, so this import of giraffe from Africa to China shows that the exchange of resources had started. So each point in this slide is actually indicating the start of prosperity, the start of trade, the start of exchange of ideas, the start of exchange of goods, the start of definitely the exchange of culture at that time.